Recorded Books and One Click Digital present The Jaguar Smile by Salman Rushdie. Narrated by John Curless. The book begins with the following quote from Anonymous. There was a young girl of Nicaragua who smiled as she rode on a Jaguar. They returned from the ride with the young girl inside, and the smile on the face of the Jaguar. Hope, a prologue. 10 years ago, when I was living in a small flat above an off-license in SW1, I learned that the big house next door had been bought by the wife of the dictator of Nicaragua, Anastasio Somoza Debayle. The street was obviously going down in the world, what with the murder of the nanny Sandra Rivet by that nice Lord Lucan at number 44, and I moved out a few months later. I never met Hope Somoza, but her house became notorious in the street for a burglar alarm that went off with surprising frequency, and for the occasional parties that would cause the street to be jammed solid with Rolls-Royce, Mercedes-Benz, and Jaguar limousines. Back in Managua, her husband, Tacho, had taken a mistress, Dinora, and Hope was no doubt trying to keep her spirits up. Tacho and Dinora fled Nicaragua on the 17th of July 1979, so that Nicaragua Libre was born exactly 1 month after my own son. 19th of July is the formal Independence Day because that was when the Sandinistas entered Managua, but the 17th is the real hat-in-air moment, the Dia de Alegría, the day of joy. I've always had a weakness for synchronicity, and I felt that the proximity of the birthdays forged a bond. When the Reagan administration began its war against Nicaragua, I recognized a deeper affinity with that small country in a continent, Central America, upon which I had never set foot. I grew daily more interested in its affairs because, after all, I was myself the child of a successful revolt against a great power, my consciousness the product of the triumph of the Indian Revolution. It was perhaps also true that those of us who didn't have our origins in the countries of the mighty West or North had something in common. Not certainly anything as simplistic as a unified third world outlook, but at least some knowledge of what weakness was like, some awareness of the view from underneath, and of how it felt to be there, on the bottom, looking up at the descending heel. I became a sponsor of the Nicaragua Solidarity Campaign in London. I mention this to declare an interest. When I finally visited Nicaragua in July 1986, I didn't go as a wholly neutral observer. I wasn't a blank slate. I went to Nicaragua as a guest of the Sandinista Association of Cultural Workers, ASTC, the umbrella organization that brought writers, artists, musicians, craftspeople, dancers, and so on together under the same roof. The occasion was the 7th anniversary of the triumph, as it's known, of the Frente Sandinista. I went eagerly, but with a good deal of nervousness. I was familiar with the tendency of revolutions to go wrong, to devour their children, to become the thing they had been created to destroy. I knew about starting with idealism and romance and ending with betrayed expectations, broken hope. Would I find myself disliking the Sandinistas? One didn't have to like people to believe in their right not to be squashed by the United States, but it helped. It certainly helped. It was a critical time. On the 27th of June, the International Court of Justice in The Hague had ruled that the U.S. aid to La Contra, the counter-revolutionary army the CIA had invented, assembled, organized, and armed, was in violation of international law. The U.S. House
Sample complete. Ready to continue?